We don't want to lose the 4 we have.
Hey, good evening. My name is Chris Kaler, Superintendent of the Ohio Valley Educational Service Center. I'd like to welcome all of you out there that are watching via YouTube at home, enjoying yourself. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our other partner ESCs for allowing this program to happen tonight. The Muskingum Valley Educational Service Center, the Athens Meigs Educational Service Center, East Central Ohio Educational Service Center, and the Jefferson County Educational Service Center. It's a nice partnership to allow this to happen. This is our fourth in the series of our Ohio School Board Association Leadership Series. Tonight we have with us Kim Miller-Smith, staff and board management with OSBA, and she's going to be here tonight and she's going to talk to us about college and career readiness and all we need to know and what boards need to know. So with that, I'll turn the program over to Kim.
Thank you
Kim?
so much. Well, good evening, and please feel free to type in or chat if you have questions during the presentation. I'm going to talk to you tonight. Chris said you're all pretty expert in the College Credit Plus category. So I'm going to talk to you about something tonight that's relatively new. It's the Readiness Seal that was rolled out in January. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to engage in that and how to use that as an alternative path for graduation, which it's set up for the graduating class of 2018. This was established by the Ohio Legislature under House Bill 49, and it has skills were created by the skills were determined and identified and are coming through OhioMeansJobs, and they were the actual skills. They're called the professional skills, which we've kind of known as soft skills. Those were identified by employers and industries and representatives of higher ed in Ohio. And this Readiness Seal, the whole process was intended to design, it was designed to meet the universal demand for individuals with soft skills. And the really important soft skills that they were going after was punctuality, reliability, and individual's ability to work as part of a team. And this happened because employers were noticing a gap in the skills that students came to them after high school, that they came to them with. And the gap is between what employers and industries are looking for and what students were bringing to the table. So in order to address that, they formed a coalition and came up with these skills that we'll talk about a little bit more. So there are 15 out of this big process came 15 skills. And it was the National Association of Colleges and Employers who got together and they collaborated and they commissioned surveys and such and came up with these 15 skills. And these skills were then vetted through other groups in Ohio and as such, and so this is what they came up with. I do also want to say that all of the information that's in this content, the content of this presentation tonight, is on the Ohio Department of Education website. There are two places, really two sources for this information. One is ODE and the other is OhioMeansJobs, and it's the same, OhioMeansJobs, and it's the same information that you're going to find. So the 15 skills, you can see the first one is the student has to commit to being drug-free. And that's a big one. And it was, while it's not a soft skill itself, the employers wanted to make it very, very clear that being drug-free is really important. This does not mean that students are drug tested for the Readiness Seal, but this is something that the student has to sign off and pledge to be drug-free. The next four that are on your slides, and they're in red, these were the top four that industry leaders and higher ed folks and businesses, they agreed upon. There was the most agreement on this, that our students need to be reliable, they need to have a strong work ethic, punctual, and be disciplined. And so those were the top four. And then working collaboratively with the team, their professionalism, learning agility, their ability to think critically and do problem solving, their leadership skills, creativity and innovation, oral and written communication, their digital technology, global and intercultural fluency, and career management skills. Those are the 15 professional skills that are a part of earning this Readiness Seal. And there's information going to be in this presentation more about what each of these mean, and we don't really need to go through that now, but these were the skills that were determined to be the 15 skills needed for a student to earn this credential. Part of this is somebody other than the school district. It could be teachers, and we'll get into that more. But there are mentors involved in this process, and these mentors come from different environments other than just the school district. And they are going to help determine if a student is proficient in each one of these skills. And so right off the bat, I wanted to define proficiency for you as it's defined by ODE and OhioMeansJobs. The student has a deep understanding, can achieve a high standard routinely, takes responsibility for his or her own work, deals with complex situations, makes decisions with confidence, and sees overall how individual actions influence outcomes. So that is the proficiency definition that's used throughout with all 15 of the skills. And there is a rubric, and later on I'm going to talk about that rubric. But I talk about those first four skills, and you can see here that we go from expert, proficient, developing, and beginner. And you'll see that for reliability, the student manages commitments. He or she is respectful of time, his own time as well as others, is trustworthy, has a clear sense of right and wrong. Those are the kinds of things that are going into reliability, and you have that, and this entire rubric you can download off of ODE as well. Work ethic, they're looking for someone who works hard to complete all assignments. They like them completed ahead of schedule with high quality, maintains positive attitudes, can coach others. So that's the expert level that they're looking for in work ethic. Punctuality. You arrive ahead of schedule, prepared for your assigned task, and you can coach others to begin task. That's the expert level that they're looking for. The proficient level is you arrive on time and you're prepared to come to work. You're prepared to do your work. And the discipline is you consistently follow all the rules and regulations, you stay on task, you minimize distractions, your cell phone. The cell phone's a big issue for work and higher ed as well. And you're a good example. You're for other people. The proficient level there, you're going to see you follow the rules and regulations, you self-start, and you stay on task. So as you go through this, and we don't need to go through all of those skills, but those were the top four. And so you can see the level that we're looking for this Readiness Seal rubric. So what is this seal? Well, it's the 21st, because the 21st century workplace is constantly evolving, and our businesses, as I've stated a little bit earlier, have reported a persistent disconnect between the skills the students come to work or to higher ed with and what they need. the professional skills that they've come up with, these 15 skills, they believe that they will contribute to student success in higher ed as well as in employment. And this gap is a challenge for businesses and for higher ed. It's a financial challenge as well as a time challenge, a productivity challenge. And so this is the reason why it's being addressed. It did just roll out in January of 2018. I believe that the media release went out like the 17th of December, but they began rolling it out in January of 2018. It is available for this year's graduating class, and it is an alternative pathway to graduation this year. There is discussion right now, according to the ODE webinar that was just released on April the 6th or 7th. There is conversation about continued use of the Readiness Seal as an alternative pathway to graduation for the next 2 years. But there's no decision on that, and I can't tell you that it's going to happen, but it is in conversation. In order to earn the Readiness Seal, students choose 3 adult mentors. They must have 3 mentors. And the 3 mentors will then determine the proficiency of these 15 skills. The mentors there's a validation form that has to be completed, and the mentors will do their part of this validation form. We're going to talk about that form a bit. And the mentors must be from 2 of the 3 areas. The 3, they call them their environments. So the student must do work in the school environment, the work environment, or the community environment. And they have to be from 2 of those areas. So 2 of the 3 have to be addressed. And so the mentors also have to be from 2 areas. So a student could have 2 mentors from school and 1 from community, or any other kind of combination of that. But the 3 mentors are a requirement. And all 3 mentors must be involved in the validation. The final validation form, after all these 15 skills are verified, the final validation has to be verified, and this person's called the verifier, by somebody in the high school. And this, I did not see this in any kind of language, but OD talks about this as verified by principal, assistant principal, or guidance counselor. A little bit later on, I want to talk to you about some of the things you ought to think about as you're implementing this in terms of just some process for the high school. Student cannot document all 15 skills in one environment. So you cannot have your mentors sign you off on all 15 of the professional skills from school. They must use 2 of the 3. 2 environments must be reflected, and each skill must be validated by at least 1 mentor. So again, this goes back to that mentor. You can have 2 mentors from school and 1 from someplace else, but all 3 have to be used. And if I forget, Chris, that's one of the areas I want to talk about, is selecting your mentors and making sure your environments match up. What is a mentor? The student is completely in charge of selecting the mentors. The student is in charge of a lot of this process until the end. The mentors are experienced advisors the student trusts. So that's as much of a definition as you have there. Again, there must be 3 mentors who are involved in the overall validation process. And when that mentor signs the form, and this is an important thing for mentors to know, that when they sign the form, they are giving a recommendation to a prospective employer or a prospective representative from a school of higher ed. Additionally, the student can secure letters of recommendation from the mentors, and that's kind of a bonus part of the validation. So these environments, we have a school environment, we have a work environment, and a community environment. And the mentors who come out of the school environment could be teachers, administrators, advisors, coaches, or just about anybody else in the school. The mentors who come out of the work environment are typically supervisors, hiring managers, experienced coworkers, and others. And I don't know what the and others are on any of these. The community leaders or mentors be volunteer coordinators, faith-based leaders, your pastors and people like that, and then other people in the community. So it's kind of a wide open area there, and students can select. This is the form, the validation, the Readiness Seal validation, and you'll see there, this kind of drove me crazy, and for the title of the title slide, I could not do it. I just cannot bring myself to do it. But OhioMeansJobs is all together. There are no spaces between the words. So when you see that written, if I do have it in slides, I didn't make a mistake. It's all together like that. So typically I just wrote OMJ, Readiness Seal. But that's the real name, is the OhioMeansJob Readiness Seal. And this is the validation form. And you can see this gray part here. The student has to sign the drug-free pledge. That comes before the skills, is right, the drug-free pledge. And then there are the 15 skills, and I don't have them all here. And you can see on the bottom over here that the mentor has to sign and then put their initials and print their name and give their contact information, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And you can see that over here there are sections about the student's going to fill out evidence of how I achieved or demonstrated the skill, where I demonstrated it, looking at those environments, and then there's a section for the mentor. This form is available. It's digital. It's a digital form, and you can it can be written on. So that makes it really nice so that you can share the form. My first thing when I looked at this, I thought, how's this form going to go around? You know, the student's going to keep this form, and I can just see getting to the end of the year and then losing the form or something. And by it being online and by it being digital, everybody will have a copy and they can sign in. You do not have to use it digitally. You can print the form and use it that way if that's what the student needs to do. And I'll talk about the form a little bit more in a bit here. There is also, on the last page, there's a part 3 to this as well. And on the last page of part 3, there's a part where the student has to say that the information on the form is true, complete, and accurate. And so the student has to verify that. The rubric, which I showed you the first 4, it's a guide. It's not an absolute in evaluating like we might be used to rubrics and other areas in education. This is a guide. It does not have to be used at all, but it's a nice tool, and it has some value in terms of its function. First of all, when you look at what the proficient skill is, or when you're looking at the expert level of the skill, a student has an understanding of what it looks like. When you're demonstrating the skill, what does it look like at a proficient level? And the rubric does a really good job of telling a student this is what punctuality looks like at a proficient level. It's also a good tool for effective conversations about the student's performance. If the mentor thinks that the student isn't to the proficient level and is trying to explain the skill and trying to explain the student level, using the rubric is a good conversation piece of this is what it looks like, this is where you are, how might you be able to get here, what do you suggest we start doing, what do you suggest you start doing, things like that. This is also, the rubric is also used by the student. It can be used by the mentors, as I just said. The high school verifier is going to be able to use that form to verify the experience that the student wrote about against the rubric, if he or she wants. And parents are a part of this process, and if they want to be in the conversation about discipline or about your career management, then that's there for parents to be able to support the student as well and to have that conversation about what it looks like to be at this expert or proficient level. I've included in here for you the rubric on all of you have the first 4 or 5, and I've included the other ones so that you can look at it. This is the other piece. The validation form and the rubric are online, and I've listed that in the presentation. You can download those and you can have the full rubric. Even if you aren't doing the OhioMeansJobs Readiness Seal, this might be an interesting piece to have, a document to have to discuss in your own courses or in your own readiness, college or work ready preparation programs that you have. So I'm going to buzz through these. So then you get to the point where you're validating the student verification forms. The high school verifier, that would be the principal or assistant principal, guidance counselor. You will meet with the student and you will review the form. And this verifier is also going to take a look at the evidence that the student had written on the form, demonstrating this is what I did, and he or she wrote this is my demonstration, evidence of how I demonstrated this skill. So that verifier is going to review that evidence, and they're going to they know the rubric. They're going to look at that. They're going to use that rubric to help look at the evidence. And then they also have to look at the form to make sure that all the mentor and all the student portions of the form are complete. And at the end of that process, that verifier, the high school verifier, should also contact one or more mentor to verify the student demonstrated the skills. There's some technical information about this form and about getting this done. That you need to sign and mark the form completed once the high school verifier, high school principal or guidance counselor goes through the form and decides the students met all of the has met all of the requirements. Then you have to sign and mark the form completed, and you have to make sure you get it into your local district student information system. And there are a couple of ways for you to get this into your student information system, but be looking for, it depends on the system your district uses. So it's different in each system, but be looking for OhioMeansJobs Readiness Seal, or it might just say Readiness Seal option. or it might be under alternative graduation options. Look in those places, and your EMIS people know this, and they'll get you to the right place. But it needs to get marked in there because it needs to be marked in there so that the transcripts and you'll report the student's completion in your in-house reporting as well, so the diploma can get the seal. The EMIS coordinator, you want to make sure that the EMIS coordinator knows about the OhioMeansJobs Readiness Seal reporting, and they need to know, they probably already do know, that that's within FY18 reporting period G. And another important detail is, and you've probably, if you're using this, and if you all were right here in front of me, I'd love to know if anybody is implementing this year. But if you are implementing this, you've probably already contacted your diploma distributor to figure out how you're going to affix the seals. When this goes into your EMIS or your student information system, the seal will physically be populated on the student's transcript already. What if the student didn't meet the requirements? What do you do? Well, the first thing that ODE mentioned several times in their documents and in the webinar was to use your discretion when you're making these determinations. And when the student has not really demonstrated, the evidence really doesn't show demonstration of the skill, then take the student back with the rubric and go over again what it looks like to be proficient in this skill or to be expert, or whichever. We're just looking for proficient as the minimum requirement here. But you need to go back over that and explain, this is the evidence that was demonstrated. This is what the rubric is looking for. This is what a proficient skill looks like. Here's where you need to grow. So identify the growth opportunities with the student and bring in the mentor as well, so that the mentor can work with the student. And then encourage the student to resubmit the validation form and any other supporting documents that they have. Your career and technical students can also be involved in this. It's another way. Career and technical students are doing a lot of this already. So they're going to have these experiences and they should be able to cite their evidence. They still have to use the 3 mentors, and they still have to use the mentors in the same environments. Again, they can use 2 in one and 1 in another. They can use 1 in every environment, but they are held to the same rules as everyone else. It's very important that the student, the Career Center, and the homeschool talk to each other about this, because the validation, that final validation, will have to be done by the homeschool verifier. So it's important that the principal, assistant principal, guidance counselor, whoever that high school verifier is, knows that this career center student is working on this readiness seal. So they can be prepared and they can plan for the follow-up, conversations and that whole validation part into your student information system, because you're going to want that student's diploma to have the seal, and that transcript will have the seal as well. Students can independently get this seal as well. And they can directly work with their mentors to complete the demonstrations of skills, and the mentors can fill out their sections. And again, it's very important that the student tells a counselor or the high school verifier that, hey, I'm doing this, you need to know, so that, again, the same process can be followed. In the OhioMeansJobs K-12 website, and this is part 3 of that verification form, there is a backpack. And this is a bonus for students, as well as having a mentor write a letter of recommendation for them. There's a bonus on using this backpack. So when students, and actually adults, I've seen this OhioMeansJobs site, and adults looking for jobs through certain areas are required to go on, or encouraged to get in and create a backpack on OhioMeansJobs website. But there is a K-12 portion. There is a career cluster inventory that a student can take and use for his or her interests to help him or her create a career plan. You can create on this website and upload a resume and a cover letter. And you can also upload those letters of recommendation that you want to upload. And you can practice interviewing on the website as well. This is a picture of the gold seal that is going to be placed on the diploma. A couple of things that you want to ask about from your diploma distributor is you're going to need to know how much time you're going to, what's the turnaround time going to be in this. And you're going to need to know, will you have identified the students who are going to earn this readiness label in time for the company to affix the seal, or if you're just going to order seals and you're going to affix them. But those are important questions you need to get straightened out with your distributor early on. ODE has on their website diploma distributors that they've worked with, and Jostens is one of them, and this is the form that, this is the picture of the diploma that they have on their site. And the transcript. This is what the transcript will look like for a student who's earned the Readiness Seal. And that, like I said, that's self-populated onto the transcript. Some contacts on this. Kyla Mickens is the lead person at the Ohio Department of Education, and she did the webinar earlier this month. As I said, because it just rolled out in January, they're defining more things and able to answer more questions. A great deal of this is left to local control, and a lot of the answers to the questions, it's up to the district. Basically, the things that aren't up to the district is that you must use 3 mentors. Those musts that are in there, they're about it. And the ultimate authority, if Readiness Seal is given or not, is to the high school. So, and to that high school verifier. Some things I think you ought to think about as you put this. I'm a former administrator, a high school administrator, and former assistant superintendent and superintendent. And I think it's important that school boards and boards think about, and administration, think about a couple of these things. If you haven't already, if you're already doing this, you would probably be able to share with us some of what you're doing. But I think it's really important. I would have some kind of a meeting at the beginning of the year. It must be done in high school. And the House bill says prior to graduation, the student will finish the 15 skills. So it does not say that you cannot start this in the 9th grade. So you could start it in the 9th grade. But I would get my students early, talk to them about this, share it with the parents. You know, part of this discussion tonight's to be about promoting the career readiness. And so I definitely have a meeting, bring in parents, bring in potential mentors that you think you might have in your community, especially. If you have a significant workforce, I'd bring in some people in there who, maybe their HR person, someone who's going to have some understanding of what this Readiness Seal is, and bring in your school personnel so that they have an idea. Certainly your high school personnel need to know about this because they could potentially be mentors. And then the next thing I would do is I would have a deadline, some kind of a deadline each year when students would come to you and say, hey, I'm going to work on this Readiness Seal. And you know, if they don't start in their 9th grade year, it's okay. They can start their senior year. But if somebody tells me they want to start on this, I'd want to make sure that their mentors are correct. That just in terms of you have 3 mentors, that you're going to use all 3 mentors, and then that they're in the correct environments. So you don't want to have 2 mentors from school and 1 from the community, and then want somebody to sign off employment pieces who aren't doing that. It's just, if you haven't asked the right people and you're in the wrong environment, you want to make sure you get that taken care of. So I would take a look to make sure that the students are going to have the right mentors. It's really important to note, though, that these 15 skills, you don't need 45 sign-offs. You only need 1 of those 3 mentors to sign off for you. So you do not need to show punctuality in all 3 environments. You only need to show punctuality in 1. So it doesn't matter where, it just has, and these skills are such that you could get them without having 1 of each. So 1 of each mentors in each environment. But I'd want to really look at that. The other thing that I would want to do is I'd want to have some kind of a mid-year sit down with the students so you could see, are they doing anything? Are they, and you don't need to push it, but this is good information for you to know, so you know at the end of the year, how much push are you going to have? How much time is this going to take you to get through the verification process? Because there's a verifier, somebody's going to have to sit down and look at these, and how much time are you looking at, so you can plan accordingly. I know it's a pretty busy time at the end of the school year, especially for high school seniors, and this is going to be really important if you are using this for an alternative path to graduation. So my point is, then you don't want to send the kids off in August with this Readiness Seal, and they're all ready to go, and you're not going to talk to them again until May to see if they made it or not, because you have that whole portion about what if the student doesn't make it. So you need to allow some time for resubmission and to kind of take a look. And I'm telling you, especially counselors and administrators are not going to be able to do all this work in the last month of school. So I talked with Kenna Haycox today at OSBA, our policy lead, and it's not It's not something that a board should have a policy on, but certainly the board, or certainly the administrative team and the board should discuss, but there should be some procedures that you create around this process. So you can do, you want to do right by your employees who are going to have to verify all of this, and you want to do right by the student who can use this as a really good tool. It's a great experience for a student one way or the other, whether they're using it for a graduation alternative path, or if they're just doing it for self-enrichment, or they want the cool seal, or whatever the reason is. But it's something that you really want to have planned and put a timeline around so you can get it done and get the work done correctly. That's pretty much the quick and the dirty of that. If you have questions, my contact information is on the front slide. Feel free to call me at any point in time. I've talked with several guidance counselors who are their verifiers, and they're just kind of living through the first round of this and working on it. And the mentoring part is the big deal for that. You know, it's just making sure that this is happening correctly. And a lot of kids who are self-starters, the students who are self-starters and the students who need it as an alternative path seem to be the students who are engaging in this in these short 4 or 5 months that we've had to work on it. So please feel free to reach out, and it's been a pleasure being here with you tonight. Thanks.
Are there any guidelines for districts that may have want to share this information with their local business and industry partners, you know, who might not know what a readiness seal actually means?
Right.
As other than just, you know, they see the diploma.
Right.
Are there any other guiding documents that you're aware of?
Not so much. That you could adopt some of the support. I can't recall the name right off. Success. The success-bound information that's on ODE's website. It has a letter to employers, has a letter for parents, and you could adopt that to work with this. But for the OMJ Readiness Seal itself, there wasn't anything. They have a list, though, of businesses and industries who have signed on to the Ohio Readiness Seal, or OhioMeansJobs Readiness Seal. They have a list. They have 10 big industries on there right now. Kyla said they're adding every day to the list. So it is still really relatively new, and it's going to need a lot of explanation in a lot of communities around the state. So that, and I would involve those higher ed. If you have a higher ed institution in your district, I'd involve them too, so that they can be a part of it. We can't assume that they actually have information on this as well. So.
Okay. I just sent out a text to see if we had any questions from any of our participating members. I'll just
Great.
Wait 1 minute here.
Okay. I might also add that I threw in slides for you about the college career the college plus college credit plus changes, and they're in your handout too, so that you can see if you. I know you're pretty well aware of those, but threw them in there for you to use if you're not.
What might be the, you know, what might this pathway or at least option replace? You know, what I mean, as far as those, you know, the graduation requirements
Right.
and the different pathways. Is there?
I have no
testing. You know, any of the, you know, the points, anything there?
no idea,
Okay.
and it's not being discussed. I mean, they were really clear that they had no idea either. I thought it was interesting that they were discussing using this for 2 more years. So I thought the 2 years was interesting.
Okay, I don't think I have any more questions coming, so.
Thanks.